Aces and spaces fly mainly around the places.
How you get so big that you hold of this kind?
George Filoni is back to tell us more about Star Wars Resistance, and this time we're looking at the Aces. Now, we've seen some of the Aces and some of the other footage. We've seen Tordoza show up, and my first impression of these characters was that they were going to be a rival crew to who we learned was Team Fireball. And I am very pleasantly surprised to find out that that's not really the route that it seems to be going in, at least not in the way it seems right now. At first, it kind of seemed like we were going to have Team Fireball versus, like, the established, really cool team, and they were going to be in a rivalry, and the other team were going to be a bunch of jerks, and the good guys were going to be not jerks, and they were going to fight the jerks, but they're not jerkness, and that's not really what it seems to be at all. I mean, yes, the Aces are the Aces. They are the best pilots on the station. But more than that, they're also the protectors of the station. Remember, the main character, Kazuda, is on this station on a mission for Poe Dameron, and his job is to kind of like go in there and figure out who the First Empire is and spy on them and find them out, basically. What we see here is that this whole station appears to be kind of resistance territory. In fact, the video at the end says that the Aces are kind of reluctant members of the resistance. And in fact, their job as the best pilots on the station is to stop First Order attacks, and presumably anyone's attacks, but primarily to defend against the First Order. And when they kind of went through the different characters, you know, we were told that they were loyal, or that they cared about their teammates, and that sort of thing, and they don't seem to be jerks. I mean, yeah, they're probably tough, and they might be rough around the edges, or mean, or they might not like, you know, upstarts or whatever, but they're not necessarily going to be bad guys. I mean, maybe. It certainly would be a plot point if Kazuda could, you know, find out that one of them is the villain. And there's one that's a very obvious suspect, and that almost makes me feel like that's not even going to be... Anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. But I really liked that it seems like the Aces are going to be a group that Kazuda is aspiring to join, and not a group that he's fighting. I mean, the video even says that he's made friends with Tordoza, and that they seem to be getting along really well, and that I originally thought she was going to be like a rival, the better pilot that outshines him, but instead it appears that they're going to be friends from the get-go. And that kind of gives me a little bit better idea of where the story's going to go, and I like that whatever conflict is going on in this story, it doesn't look like we're going to start out with a lot of petty office politics, basically, between a bunch of people who are pilots. I mean, they might not give Kazuda the time of day because he's young and he's new, but it's going to be because of that, and not because of, you know, everyone here just hates everyone else. And I really like that idea. And also kind of shows me that I think Team Fireball is probably how this type of thing usually goes. In fact, all of the members of the Aces probably have their own team. I mean, the way they're described in the video, it sounds like they race each other and are rivals with each other also. That they're a group to the extent that they are the protectors of the station, not that they're on some sort of racing team together, or at least that's how I interpreted it. And it's not necessarily groundbreaking, it's not necessarily a story we've never seen before, but I just feel like whenever I watch a show for this kind of demographic, that you have this, the kind of built-in rivalry. And I also really like, if we look at other Lucasfilm animations, the most prominent example would be the Ghost Crew from Rebels, where they are their own team. But beyond that, you go back to the Clone Wars, and you have Anakin and Ahsoka and Rex and R2, and you kind of have a core group, even though it's an anthology show that has all these other kind of spin-off side episodes. But I like the idea that we're going to have two character groups in this show, and yet these two character groups are not necessarily going to be at odds with each other. Where I was hopeful for the show before, I will say that this kind of has me a little bit more excited, just because it's already going and not the way I expected based off of my first impression. To that point, something I was alluding to earlier, I think at some point, obviously, Kazuda being a spy is going to become a big deal. It's going to become probably sort of issue. I would assume, and this is just me guessing, that he's going to start making friends, and then they're gonna find out he's a spy, and they're gonna not like him even though he's a spy for their side. That's kind of what I would honestly like to see. I know I was just saying I didn't want like office politics drama, and that's pretty angsty office politics right there. But it is the type of thing, I feel like if you're gonna make a spy show, embrace that story and do that type of thing. I also think that Steven Stanton's character, which by the way, welcome back, buddy. So great to see you again. His character to me just feels like the red herring. He's the ex-Imperial. He's probably the one that Kazuda's gonna be told to watch the entire time. And to that extent, I don't think he's gonna be the dude, just because that's just a little bit too easy. Like if he's gonna end up being the traitor, he's gonna end up being the traitor in like the first episode. You know what I mean? There's just no point in dragging that out. And that's fun for me because in Legends and New Canon both, there's a theme of former Imperials kind of ending up on the Resistance side of things. Now usually it's because they join the Empire against their will, or because it's the only place where they could go to learn how to fly. This guy seems to be more the Empire just lost, but the First Order doesn't like him for whatever reason. I would really like to see this character. I don't know that it's going to go this way, but I think it would be a fun use of the character because he comes off as this gruff, tough type of guy. I'd like to see him think that the First Order is like just a bunch of pathetic copycats, especially considering a lot of people who have complaints about the sequel trilogy feel that way about the First Order, that they're just kind of these copycats that were uncreative villains in a way. And I think it would be fun if this character could exemplify that, but like within the canon. I think that would get it a little bit meta, and I think that would be fun, but that's just what would happen if I was writing the show. I don't really need it to go that way. I like how this is going. I like the idea that they're a group, but they're also their own individuals. They're going to have rivalries with each other, but they're more fun. And this just feels like the environment on this station, the Colossus, that it's going to have this full culture and this full life, and that there's going to be all these things going on, and it's really going to create this new space that we haven't seen a lot. So really, out of anything we've seen, this is probably the thing that has me the most jazzed for the show so far. And while it's still not my preferred style, the more I see of the animation, the more it continues to grow on me. So I'm getting more and more hype than I have been for the show going forward. But what are your thoughts so far? What do you think of the released material for this show going forward? Are you watching it? What do you have to say? Please leave us a comment. Make sure you're following us at Port Haven Forums on Twitter, and visit port-haven.com for even more. And until next time, keep it real and fly casual.
Cooking candy fun.